Welcome to another installment of the Goddess Keys, where we activate, unleash, and unlock the tools and the jewels to support us with returning back to our original selves outside of the false matrix simulation. And today I want to discuss a new healing strategy or spiritual integration strategy called spiral astromancy. And I want to discuss a little bit more about what that means and how it might show up and how you could utilize it to support you with path working your way outside of the false matrix simulation. This is especially for folks who feel as though they are enmeshed in certain karmic loops or scripts and they're finding it difficult to divert and create their own path. Spiral astromancy might be something that would be really supportive for you on your journey. So something I've mentioned previously in other recordings is this idea of astrology being really like a trafficking map. So your astrology chart is really a blueprint for how you might be energy harvested within the false matrix simulation. So I do read astrology charts, but it's always been from a freedom-based standpoint of clearing any of the scripts or narratives that you are supposedly destined to play out according to the false matrix simulation. I've always kind of read astrology not from the standpoint of actually being an astrologer, but seeing it as a map to decipher, to clear any soul contracts, to find out where different karmic loops are playing out. In order to rewrite your script, it does require you going behind the mirror of the false matrix simulation. So one thing to know about the false matrix is that it is held up by mirrors. And so you can even look up the terms mirror principle or mirror universe to learn more about this. This also goes into this idea of our reality being a hologram. And even if we think about screens, they are projected through mirrors. So our phones, for example, our computers, those are mirror-based sort of technologies. And essentially, a lot of times, we will see reflections of ourselves related to certain storylines, certain distortions. This is how sometimes things such as destiny swapping or karmic transference happens, is through the reflected mirror realms. It's usually through certain types of illusion that are being projected into our fields. And so a lot of times we might be wearing the coding of something that's not really organically who we are, and we can feel confined by it. So everything from astrology to, how we see geography, a lot of this is held up by different mirror realms. And getting outside of the false matrix simulation might require you to transcend the mirror. If you don't plan on transcending the mirror, or if you want to stay in the false matrix simulation, then you would want to master the mirror. Okay. I suggest both, having mastery over the mirror, knowing how mirror-based technology works. But ideally, you probably would want to transcend that reflection-based technology, because a lot of times it's going to reflect things into your field that actually isn't organic to who you are. And this goes into something called a spiral. All right. And so this is womb-based technology. This is very old primordial wisdom, the way of the spiral. So a lot of what we are caught up in, even when we look at our astrology charts, it's grid-based. Okay. There's lots of lines and lots of angles. It's based on linear time and a way of tracking life that is very linear and predictable. So our astrology charts are utilized to keep us predictable, to keep us linear. And so there's lots of different ways that we are defaulted back to whatever our factory settings are based upon astrology. A lot of times this is done through asteroids as well. Yeah, different stelliums in certain houses might indicate more about what grids you might be a part of that you might need to detangle yourself from in order to merge more with your organic essence outside of the false matrix simulation. I know that this is a very dense topic, especially when you start talking about the world behind the mirrors. It can lose a lot of people. It can start feeling or sounding like mumble jumbo, but hopefully the ones who are ready to receive this message are able to receive it. Spiral Astromancy is a tool for basically seeing what projections are playing out in your field, what grids are playing out in your field to keep you in subservient roles or to keep you looping or to keep you oppressed within the simulation. And so most astrology was born in a mirror, and this mirror told you you are what the sky reflects, you are what the planets say, you are what time recorded. And then the mirror became a field. So this is something else that we want to get more accustomed to. I actually just posted a pretty lengthy article on the Black Diamond tier of Patreon around this topic of becoming the field. So if you are looking to transcend the false matrix simulation, you want to start seeing yourself as a part of a field as opposed to being just an individual identity. So your individual identity keeps you ensnared within the false matrix simulation. If you only resonate with your identity, if you only resonate with your bloodline or your story, then you're really easy to be puppeted within the false matrix simulation. But if you start connecting with the primordial field that you were a part of before you were assigned an identity, before you incarnated into the false matrix simulation, then that's where your power is, because now you're transcending the grid systems. Okay, you're transcending the rules on the rule board, and you're basically transcending the game altogether. This requires a deep remembering. This requires ego dissolution, right? There's a big process that we go through when we forego our identity for something larger, knowing that we're a part of something more all-encompassing and more unifying. If we're a part of a certain field, then we pull from the energy of that field of who we are and what we are already connected to shape the lives of our dreams. This is pulling on the energies of the dark matter template, the dark womb template, the primordial womb, raw, unfiltered, creative energy, which has not been siphoned by the mirror realm. So easier said than done, but one thing that you can utilize this tool of spiral astromancy is to look at whatever obstructions are coming into your reality, which would prevent you from seeing yourself as a field or from becoming the field. Otherwise, you'll be caught up in the mirror field, the field of mirrors, the field of projections, the field of illusions. This is the architecture of the false matrix simulation. But if you are seeking to transcend the architecture of the false matrix simulation, then you must transcend the mirror field. The mirror field is not just a metaphor. It is an architecture. It's a feedback system. It reflects your gifts back as roles. Your identity becomes a performance. You become a character. Your life becomes a script. And so this mirror field feeds on your own energy and makes it distorted and then calls it destiny. It packages it to you as your destiny. But whatever the false matrix simulation is telling you about what you're destined to do, most likely it's a distortion of who you are. It's a fragmented, distorted aspect of all that you truly are. So the mirror field is the invisible script behind most systems of identity. It says you're a rising sign. You're here to fulfill a purpose. Your life has already been charted. But the truth is that you are not your chart. You're not a projection of planetary math. You are the signal behind it. Let me explain how you might use spiral astromancy as opposed to traditional, let's say, Western astrology. Okay. Spiral astromancy doesn't read your chart like a sentence. It reads it like a spell, and it helps you to break it. So instead of just reading your chart and saying, oh, this is my rising sign, this is my moon sign, this is my sun sign, this is who I am, right? A lot of times astrology will condition you to accept who you are based upon what your chart says that you are, okay? And there's usually no room for argument because, hey, these are celestial instructions. But what if the stars themselves are a part of the architecture of the false matrix simulation? What if the stars or the cosmos themselves are a part of the architecture of the mirror field? What then? Then that must mean that there is an aspect of yourself that transcends your astrology chart. And so spiral astromancy will support you with getting there. So we don't predict timelines, we unbind them. We don't ask who you are, we ask who did the grid assign you to be. So the spiral, your innermost self, doesn't ask for performance. It doesn't need your worth to be proven, explained, or praised. You already are. You already are a part of the field. You just need to remember your access and your participation in the field outside of what the simulation has going on. So spiral astromancy shows you where you've been locked in different feedback loops, different ancestral roles, money traps, destiny scripts that you never actually agreed to. Now I want to discuss a little bit more about the things that spiral astromancy specifically will support you with identifying in your traditional birth chart. So your traditional birth chart will tell you your sun sign, your rising sign, your moon sign, your Venus sign, what have you. It'll show you if you have a different stellium, like 3 or more planets in one house. It will show you lots of things. It'll show you things about your childhood. It will show you things about who you're going to marry or the relationship you're going to have with your children. It's a whole script that's playing out, okay? But spiral astromancy will actually take it a lot further. Instead of reading you back the script of your astrology chart, what it's going to do is it's going to show you the different grid systems that you're enmeshed in that might be blocking you from aligning more with your innermost self, okay? So each house system, like houses 1 through 12, are connected to certain grid systems, different control grids. And these grids might be more active depending on the place that you're at in the world and how that place interacts with your birth chart. It will depend upon the linear time, like what year it is. There's certain trigger events that are going to happen in your timeline depending upon your birth chart, depending upon the scripting of your birth chart. Also, each grid also has different frequency fences. These are, frequency fences, and we'll get into this more, but it's basically a way to keep your field small, to keep you from remembering that you are a part of a larger field, okay? If you can stay bought into your individual story that's usually filled with different trauma narratives, it keeps you small and it keeps you entrapped in your story and out of alignment with the deeper material or essence of who you truly are. Okay, so let's talk about the grids more. Let's talk a little bit more about grids and how they can show up in spiral astromancy. Okay, so a grid is an invisible structure that tells energy how to behave. So it says, this is a house, this is a role, this is a destiny. Now, astrological grids assign meaning to placement, not based on your source signal, but on an external framework. It sounds like guidance, but most of the time it's a form of control. So even your birth chart can become a cage if it's read through a grid. So what is a frequency fence? So a frequency fence is a little bit more subtler than a grid. A grid is it's going to line out the different geometry or architecture of your life and of your life script according to the false matrix simulation. Meanwhile, the frequency fences are just little subtle reminders to stay in your lane, to stay in your place, to stay in your role. It's not the structure, it's the limit. So it caps your consciousness at a certain vibration. It tells you you're evolving, but only inside this particular system. It tells you you're expanding, but not beyond the signs and timelines that have been defined for you. And it's why so many people, they outgrow astrology, but then they stay confined by it at the same time. Now, spiral astromancy, what does this do with the relationship between your astrology chart, the grids of the false matrix simulation, and the frequency fences of the false matrix simulation. So spiral astromancy doesn't decorate the fence, it dissolves it. So we don't decode your chart to assign you any new roles. We map the grids that are binding your energy, and we dismantle the grids. We dismantle the illusion that those grids have been casting over your life. Okay. So this is a very extreme unbinding work that we do through spiral astromancy. We also utilize the story of your birth chart, and we connect it more to the spiral as opposed to the linear system of the false matrix simulation. There are also clues and different keys and codes in your astrology chart, basically ensure that we're able to trace the original spiral beneath all the overlays, beneath all the programs, the signal before you were assigned a story. Now, the spiral doesn't fence, it flows. So astrology doesn't have to be a loop, it can be a key. Spiral astromancy helps you to unlock the pattern so that your energy moves in its true essence again, not in prediction, not in permission, but pure signal and pure field. So if your identity has been shaped by signs, systems, or scripts that no longer resonate, you're not broken. You've just hit an edge in your grid, okay? And so if this is something that you're interested in exploring more, I am currently offering a session called Spiral Astromancy. And basically what you'll experience in a Spiral Astromancy session includes working on collapsing false house overlays. We will map out the different grids that are showing up according to your astrology chart. And you'll be given something very unique for you to support you with collapsing that false architecture. We will also work on reclaiming spiral timing and rhythm through your birth chart, field orientation to your original self-stream or your original spiral, your self-sourcing self. No predictions, no roles, no avatars, just your original rhythm, unmirrored and unbound. What does that look like once it's not to say that you don't know this already, that there isn't an inkling of who you are outside of the programs, but sometimes it can be hard to chart that when you are experiencing a lot of different interferences. So you'll get tangible tools in the Spiral Astromancy session to really know what grids are impacting you the most, what frequency fences are impacting you the most as it relates to your birth chart, as well as different practices and strategies that you can utilize to reclaim your power and clear any frequency fence which is keeping you out of coherence with your original spiral or your self stream. So if your chart has always felt almost right but not quite whole, or if you've outgrown the idea that the stars decide your fate, you're not confused, you're remembering. You were never meant to orbit somebody else's light. You are the spiral. You are the source. And so this transcends even this concept of you being of the stars. What if your original essence is more primordial than the stars? What if your original essence is of a time and of a place outside of the mirror field that the false matrix simulation is based upon? So the Spiral Astromancy session gets at that. So check out some more information about Spiral Astromancy below. I also have an article that I'm sharing which gives more information about this concept. This is something that is based upon a lot of different readings I've done for folks over the years, a lot of studying of my birth chart, and really creating something that I wasn't seeing when I was doing the research, when I was looking up different articles. So this is something I've created, and I'm really happy to share this. I've already been sharing bits and pieces of this on Patreon, but I'm really excited to offer this as a service on Ko-Fi. So if this is something of interest to you, then you can click on the links below. I also have different links below to other offerings that I'm providing to the collective at this time. So check those out. Sending y'all lots of love, joy, and peace. Until we meet again. Bye.